Howdy, Hacksters! I'm very excited because my Pinecil has arrived today. I was really hoping that it would arrive before I leave for Open Hardware Summit this week. It's going to be in Montreal. It's going to be so cool. In fact, I should have put that in the links in the video description. I'll put it in the description below in just a minute, but also pull it up so that we can have a look. Anyway, it's going on this weekend in Montreal. I'm very excited to spend some time with some Open Hardware folks, but basically, I wanted to get a Pinecil because this is my soldering travel kit, and I've also got a few other things that I've put together for just like hardware hacking on the go, aka hotel hacks, as I occasionally do with my friend Mohib. So my previous soldering iron fits in here really nicely. There's the barrel jack power source here, and it is a Miniware TS-100, which unfortunately has decided to stop working. I don't know why. It on some recent trips I discovered that it just like would not heat up properly, and that made me very, very sad. I checked the tip that it was like securely fastened and all that good stuff, but it was just causing nonstop problems. So I figured that it was time to upgrade in a couple of different ways to the Pinecil. This is it's not only cheaper for one thing, it's like, let's have a look at it. In fact, it is $25.99, $26 right now, compared to, I think for the TS-100, I paid maybe like $80 at the time. There is a new version of the TS-100, the TS-101, and I'm going to walk you through why I chose this one to start with. So we're also going to go through the rest of my travel electronics hacking kit, and also some of my other favorite tools that are TSA friendly. So, and some other things that I got along with the Pinecil, actually. Okay, so the TS-101 uses the same tips as this one, but it's also pretty expensive compared to the Pinecil. It's like, twice as much. And yeah, it otherwise is pretty much good. The Pinecil actually uses the same tip, so I'll be able to use my old remaining tip from the TS-100 on the Pinecil, which is very exciting for me. There is a new, or there's an alternative version of the Miniware iron called the TS-80 and the TS-80P, which these are pretty portable as well from what I've seen. It was sort of between this TS-80P and the Pinecil, and the reason that I chose the Pinecil is because if you can see here, the tip here has a cool little TRS plug, like an audio plug. However, that's a very special boy kind of soldering iron tip, and it's expensive. You have to get them, they're very specific. So for the Pinecil, you can use the TS-100 tips. They're a little bit more regular, a little bit less special, a little bit cheaper. And I really wanted the USB-C power on here. So as I showed you previously on the TS-100, the old version, which I think may no longer be made, based on what I found looking for a link for you all, that one uses just a barrel jack. And the issue with that is that when I'm traveling, sometimes I do international trips. I've actually been sent by the US government to Stockholm for Maker Faire back in the day. I've gone to Norway. I've done the Rukami festival in Russia before everything happened. And, just dealing with, I've spent some time in England and just dealing with different types of outlets and conversions with that. The first time when I went to Sweden, I plugged a cheapo soldering iron, the ones with just the plug on it, no like adjustable dial or anything. Plugged one of those into the into the wall without thinking, and that was not a good time. They have a lot more power coming out of the wall than we do here. So I think the handle of the iron started melting. It was a bad time. So I prefer to go with USB-C powered things, or regular USB powered things, or even things that run off of double or triple A's. So that's what I do for my hair clippers. Actually, I bring a hair clipper that's powered by double or triple A's. Before I had a powered travel soldering iron, I actually used a butane powered one. Before all these fancy little Miniware ones came out, I was using a butane powered soldering iron because I went to a festival in the desert and wasn't gonna have like a power hookup there. But butane soldering irons are not exactly TSA friendly. It was pretty cool because I could like remove the tip and use it as a little blowtorch, which is rad. And also lets you like, but there are better ways to melt your or to shrink your heat shrink tubing, which is mostly what I used it for because I'm boring. Anyway, so the Pinecil, again, is much cheaper, which is beautiful. Not only that, but you can get all these different things for it, including a transparent shell, which I absolutely sprung for because I'm a dork, and all these different tip sets. You can get a nice silicone charging cable. It's possible that part of the reason that my previous Miniware iron failed is because the power cable gave out, which is something that's known to happen. Not only that, but the Pinecil is open source. And what does that mean? They say this in the wiki, which is again linked in the description below. The Pinecil is held to an additional standard, how well it can meet the needs of the open source community as a RISC-V development tool. It includes hardware features not found on other soldering irons, such as BLE Bluetooth in the V2, in order to support free and open source community feature requests for both fun and science. So I love that. They made it cheaper, they made it more open source, and it uses the same soldering tips that you know and love. So I decided to finally take the plunge. I have not done extensive research on this, so it's going to be a bit of a learning experience. But let's just get this stuff out of the box and have a look. Is that all? Yeah, that's all we got. Okay, so what I will say is that this shipped from China, and it took quite a while to arrive. I would say a few weeks. So don't get it if you're like, you really need something for your upcoming trip. But this did come in time for Open Hardware Summit, so I'm very excited about that. So first up, we have the Pinecil itself. I also got some soldering iron tips, some extra ones. I think, is this the assortment or is this? Oh no, this is the short fine tip set. So there's longer tips, there's shorter tips, there's chisel tips, there's I think like a medium-sized tip. Oh, there's a knife tip. Yeah. But this is just like little short ones. So let's see what we got in here. Oh, yeah. Nice. Oh, no, this is an assortment. Cool. We've got a little knife tip there, as you can see. Another fine one. A little sort of small chisel tip. Is that what that is? Huh. And a larger chisel tip. Or, not chisel tip. What do you call those bad boys? I think of them as like horseshoe tips sometimes. Also, I got the clear case, which is very exciting. It even comes in its own transparent case. The transparent shell for the Pinecil comes in its own transparent case, which is pretty cool. And this lovely silicone USB-C cable that you're not going to lose anywhere because it's bright red, which is going to look so cool with the clear. I know that like aesthetics is not everything, but it kind of is. I've already gone through the more like, logistical bonuses of this soldering iron, so we get into the aesthetics now. I'm really bad at pulling the foam out of these things. Okay. Whew. So I actually bought this with my own money because I'm very excited about having it for personal and professional projects. So that's how you know how excited I am about it. We got a quick start guide in teeny tiny print. Getting started, basic functionality, da-da-da-da. The firmware runs on, does that say Iron OS? It does. An open firmware distributed under GNU GPLv3, so it's GNU licensed. The firmware can be upgraded via USB-C. Iron OS offers a number of features, including PID style temperature control, automatic sleep with selectable sensitivity, lift to wake support, temperature boost mode, temporarily increasing the temperature, automatic LCD rotation, and support for PD, QC, and DC power modes. Then you can go to this GitHub page that I'm going to pull up later to download the newest firmware. So maybe I'll do that before I head out on a Wednesday. And then they've got more info and like info on like documentation, contact information. What do we got on the back here? Same but in German. Cool. Das Pinecil läuft mit Iron OS. Okay, cool. Here we are. Here is our little guy. I'm going to assume that the screw is for assembling the little thing. Where's my little screwdriver? I'm not going to solder anything right now because I got packing to do, but let's see. And then we're gonna go through the rest of my travel kit. Oh, it's so satisfying when it slots in there. And of course, I may or may not get around to installing the clear case before I leave, but that's pretty gorgeous. You've got this 2-button interface situation, which may take a little bit of getting used to. So this actually has a barrel jack and a USB-C port on there. Similarly, the TS-100 had these A and B buttons that I always had to look up how to use it. I actually only got a few uses out of this, maybe like 20 uses, 30 uses before it gave up the ghost. So I never quite got the hang of it. It's the same thing actually with the MHP30, my adored mini hot plate preheater. This thing also has just an A and a B button, and you got to figure out how those relate to things like turning it on and like setting the temperature and stuff. So this is a very Miniware consistent UI choice. So if you're choosing between those and you see the Pinecil only has 2 buttons, that is pretty much what you're signing up for when you get one of these things. Anyway, so some of my other favorites for traveling. This Adafruit silicone wire. You can get it in this is the 25-meter spool. You can get it in 2-meter lengths from their shop, and it is wonderful. 95 cents or 75% 5 cents for 2 meters of silicone covered stranded wire. So the wonderful thing about this silicone wire is that it doesn't melt when you solder stuff, when you connect things to it. So that means that whatever length you strip of the wire, that's pretty much the amount of wire that you're going to get to solder with. It's not going to peel away and like melt back, which is beautiful. Also, that makes it handy for like when you're actually making stuff with it. But it also is really flexible, so it's a lot less likely to break than other types of wire that you might end up using. So I love that for traveling. Just get the little Ziplocs. What else is in my travel bag? Let's have a look. So we've got a little roll of lead-free solder. I love these little cylinders of solder, and of course lead-free is the best, especially if you're in a hotel room and like you don't necessarily have the ability to open the windows. Like lead-free all the way. I've got a teeny tiny little multimeter, which I love. Check out this little guy. It totally works. I've used it to test continuity. I've used it to test resistance, all kinds of stuff. Make sure that my 5-volt power supplies were working. I've also got actually a tiny little Ziploc bag of solder as well. I think this is leaded because it's heavier, but for emergencies. I actually keep those empty. Keep those empty containers for the solder so that I can refill them later on because I've got a giant spool of lead-free solder at home. What have we got in here? We've got some hookup wire, we've got some ribbon cables, and we've got some thread. Actually, I have a bunch of sewing kit stuff in here because what's this? I think this is hot glue bits that I didn't want to throw in, like I didn't have a trash can available. Let's throw those away right now. Sewing kits are huge for if you're doing wearables on the road. I used to use the tiny little scissors from those things, but then I actually figured out a better way, which I will show you. I think I just dump all like travel sewing kits that I get a hold of into here. There's no limit on how many little sewing kits you can have on the plane. So, and then I also have one of these. This is the type of power that I use for all my robots. So I've just got a spare sort of cannibalized 5-volt USB power cable. So besides that, I generally pack. This is a huge one. I actually went and found the nicest little like manicure kit that I could easily pack. So this is got a couple of different nail clippers. We've got a tiny little scissors. which is probably not very sturdy at all, and it doesn't look like it even closes all the way. But hey, it's better than nothing for depending on what you're trying to do. That can definitely save your butt. Some tweezers, super useful, and a little, basically a spudger, you know, for like pushing and poking stuff around. Really helpful when you're doing hot glue on the road. And then, you know, having a file helps if you've got something the wrong size. I actually, last year for Analog Astronaut Conference, which is coming up again right after Open Hardware Summit, last year I was working on a tiny little robot in the hotel, and I used almost every one of those tools. Like I had some 3D printed stuff that I was trying to fit together, and so I used the little file. I love to use the nail clippers for stripping wires. Cutting and stripping wires, you can't go wrong with a nail clipper, and they're TSA friendly. Also, I have a little tiny mini soldering iron, soldering hot glue gun, and some hot glue gun sticks for fixing stuff. And I've got an iFixit Minnow kit, which is a wonderful tiny little portable screwdriver kit. Check this out. That not only magnets onto the bottom, but it also serves as a little screw tray so that you're not going to lose the screws that you take out of your project. We've got a bunch of different bits, including security bits and this wonderful little screwdriver, and it magnets together. It's beautiful. And then one other thing that I always go with is a roll of double-sided sticky foam tape. This is a lifesaver for all kinds of different sticky hardware situations, and I adore it. So a sticky foam tape, double-sided, doesn't have to be brand name. It's all good. It always helps with stuff, especially if you're like on the scene and you can't bust out the hot glue gun. It is great. I already mentioned the MHP 30 mini hot plate preheater, which we've covered before on the channel, and I'm just going to go through some links right now to that and other things. So the mini hot plate is so good for PCB workshops. So I created a workshop around my guitar pick PCB for people who had never soldered before, like a bunch of people at Avnet who are in corporate roles and don't get any hands-on time with hardware, even though it's a very hardware-focused company. So this was a cool little thing that I designed for our centennial. And I did end up sanding the little mouse bites off of most of them, yes. But this was a great way to run a workshop because everyone was given, like, we had some tubes of solder paste given out, we had flux given out and passed around, and tweezers, and that's how everyone sort of assembled their little surface mount kits. And then I was at the back of the room with these little mini hot plates, and they made it so that I could supervise all the dangerous high temperature stuff that was actually like the hard part. Well, the evil part where people were likely to get injured and stuff. I was doing that all myself. And that way I didn't have to worry about people, you know, accidentally burning themselves at the workshop and deciding they hated hardware forever. Instead, everybody got to go, and it also gave me a chance to actually check everyone's assembly before we melted them together. So everyone would use their pair of tweezers to put the components on top after they had added the flux. And actually, I think there wasn't any flux, there was just solder paste. I used flux at the end if I needed to like rework stuff. But they put the solder paste on, they applied the components, I would check it, then I would put it on the little heater at the back, use the tweezers to take it on and off the hot mini hot plate, and then people would get to test it out. And when they like put the battery in, I would give them the battery and like tell them how to turn it on. And it was just this magical, wonderful moment. So I highly recommend that for if you're running a workshop with people and you don't have time to teach everyone to solder, or like the people to monitor everyone while they're using soldering irons. I did have some awesome teammates with me helping me from Hackster, and I really appreciated their help, like keeping everything running smoothly, you know, distributing solder paste and stuff, but it was great. I also really like the OmniFixo, so I'll probably tuck this in my bag. This is TSA friendly as well. It's not like they're gonna take this away. Ooh, I've just hit my camera, but we'll see if it's, there we go. Sorry about that, camera. Oh, it hates me now. Anyway, so OmniFixo, this wonderful four-way gripper that is just my favorite way to hold and clamp work. Now you can like, these things are magnetic, they just do so many good stuff, and you can see more about that in our OmniFixo unboxing. Check that out. I did look up the TSA regulations because I was like, I know that I've gotten through before, but also I've gotten stopped for a soldering iron before. So make sure that you have this page pulled up. It's on delta.com. They've got a guide to TSA restrictions, and you can have a soldering iron that's 7 inches or less in length in your carry-on. The cool thing about these is that, you know, with just that one little screw, you can take the tip out and then it'll be easily well under 7 inches. So nobody's gonna like be able to take it away from you, which is very important. I've had them look askance at a soldering iron before that was one of the longer, cheaper ones with no temperature control. And I think they thought that the solder like goes out through the tip of the iron. I forget what happened with that, but I did get hassled once. But this guy, you can just literally just undo that screw and then pull the tip out, and then it'll be way under 7 inches. And you can pull up that documentation page just to show people that it's okay to have a soldering iron with you. I got these links in the description. So there's more stuff that I would love to do. Before I go, I would love to print one of these cases. And I sort of found this one first and then went down the rabbit hole. So this one is based on a previous one. This one has screws for hinges. This one has, I think, 3D printed hinges. So this one, that's why this one is rugged. It's got some like metal hardware in there. If you want just a 3D printable ones, this one is apparently very sufficient for that. It links back to this one. You can see sort of how the metal bearing is used as a soldering iron stand, which is a really clever feature of these. This person has theirs with a tube of flux in there. This one has some extra iron tips. You've got some copper desoldering braid, you've got a little roll of solder, and you've got a brass coil, and you've got the spot for the USB-C cable. And I'm not sure if this is like for anything in particular, but one piece of feedback that I've seen about this case is a friend told me that they had a frustrating time getting this little roll of solder in and out of there. And I think since I'm not planning on bringing more tips, or I could swap out the USB-C bay here, because I usually use these little rolls of solder that come in these little cylinders, I could just rework the case a little bit and make a spot to put this lead-free solder roll in there, a little coil, and that would be a lot more convenient for me personally because I like being able to use those without having to re-roll it all. And then, you know, you can find these on Thingiverse. There's an original one from 2020 by Olben. There's another one, which I think overlaps with one of the ones on printables. So you can find these on Thingiverse, on printables. And I believe that a lot of them are compatible with both the Pinecil and the TS-80 and TS-100 versions. So whatever little portable soldering iron you've got, it should be able to work with it. Check out the wiki. I'm going to be digging through the wiki. I'm not a huge software person, so I probably personally won't be spending a ton of time trying to hack my soldering iron, like software-wise. But you do have that option. You know, check that out. They've got Bluetooth stuff. They've got the board schematics here. There's a Pinecil breakout board for using JTAG, GPIO, etc. The V2 model, which is what I have, allows BLE control. Why? I don't know, but like you could. To me, like I'm never gonna trust myself with a very hot item that I can control wirelessly. It's just not gonna happen. But actually, I could see it being like if you don't trust yourself to turn it off, like you could hit a button and like if you have a home automation system, you could make sure that it like you at least have an off button that you can definitely hit. And if you get nervous about that kind of stuff, you can like make it so that you can remotely turn it off just to make sure. That could be cool. Personally, I'm never gonna do that because I know exactly what would happen. It would not be good. But anyway, so yeah, that is the Pinecil. I'm very excited to get going with it. Check out all the other cool stuff in my travel kit that's TSA friendly. I've had a lot of experience traveling on planes, trains, and automobiles, literally with electronic stuff. And for example, Amtrak often has outlets that you can use. You might want to use an outlet with this. Actually, that's a good point. Actually, I've heard that sometimes you can burn out a portable battery, like a USB power bank, because if it's not able to supply enough power for the soldering iron, to make sure that you have backup power supply, or that maybe you stick with a wall wart. But it's still nice to be able to use it with a compatible power bank. So just check. Make sure you're not gonna burn it out. Let me see. Did I miss anything? Tip compatibility, power supply. Looked at the other ones. Yeah. Drop any questions or comments. If you have another portable soldering iron that you prefer for whatever reason, let me know. I did go through the TS-80, TS-80P, TS-100, TS-101. And for price reasons, as well as the fact that it's open source, and it seems like quality-wise, honestly, it seems pretty comparable to the Miniware products, the TS, etc. I'm really excited to try it out. And it's always fun to support open source, and I can 3D print cases for it, and I think that's just wonderful. All right, thanks for watching. Again, drop your questions and comments in the comments below. Check out the link, the description for all these links that I've shared. Subscribe for more hardware in your feed. We do unboxings, tutorials, and interviews all the time. And hack on. Cheers.